Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni Viewer, and I'm here to address something that's become a major talking point regarding Steve Alten's MEG, A Novel of Deep-Sea Terror, and by extension, its film adaptation, The Meg. In my review of the original book, I opened with an excerpt from the prologue, which describes a scene of a Tyrannosaurus Rex being devoured by a megalodon, a scene which was depicted on the cover of the book's original edition. This wound up sparking a surprising amount of discussion in the comments section, and had I known that was going to happen, I probably would have devoted more time to explaining it in the review proper. But since I can't go back and change it, I'm going to make that explanation here. Many people have been pointing out that the scene in question, and indeed many depictions of the megalodon associated with the book and the movie, are very scientifically inaccurate. Topics for discussion have covered a very wide range. There is talk about the estimated size of the megalodon and whether or not it's accurate in the book. There's discussion about whether or not Megalodon was even the top predator of its time. And let's not forget that based on the fossil record as we currently know it, Megalodons and T-Rexes never occupied the Earth at the same time. Now, I am not one to discourage discussions about paleontology or science in general, but when it comes to these particular stories, I can't help but feel that you guys are missing the point. MEG is not about scientific accuracy. It's a horror story, and the Megalodon is meant to be a monster, not an animal. Yes, it was technically an animal in history, but it is not an animal in the book. And the entire purpose of the T-Rex scene is meant to establish this. Yes, it is inaccurate. In fact, the following chapter acknowledges that it is inaccurate, as that scene is not an actual part of history, but rather a little video advertisement meant to promote Jonas Taylor's in-universe book about megalodons. He acknowledges outright that it is a fabrication meant solely to grab attention, but that is also the greater purpose of Steve Alten's story as a whole. If I ask you to picture a predatory dinosaur, I bet for most of you the first thing that comes to mind automatically is Tyrannosaurus Rex. Ever since its discovery and naming in 1905, it has been the dinosaur, the king of them all. Even when theories came along suggesting it might have been a scavenger. Even when new species of predatory dinosaurs much bigger than T-Rex were discovered. Even when recent discoveries suggested it may have been covered in feathers and thus looked more like a giant chicken removing all sense of menace, the T-Rex still remains the iconic predatory dinosaur. There have been countless works of fiction across all mediums portraying it in this manner. In MEG, that ultimate predatory dinosaur gets beaten by a megalodon. The apex predator is gobbled up for lunch. Bad is defeated by even worse. That is the point of this scene. It's not about presenting a scientifically accurate depiction of prehistoric life, it's about establishing that this shark is a bad mother shut yo mouth. As far as these books are concerned, the Megalodon isn't just a monster, it's the monster. And quite frankly, if you start bringing scientific accuracy into it, that just undermines the menace. You can't say, yeah, this monster/villain is terrible, but... because then what's the point? Let me clarify that point by jumping over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There have been multiple films in the MCU devoted to building up Thanos as the ultimate threat for Avengers Infinity War. He is the ultimate, the worst villain, the only one who will literally require every single hero we've met so far to band together in order to stop him. And as such, he is being treated with the appropriate levels of menace. Now, how effective would it be if we started adding caveats to it? Say during Gamora's exposition she goes, yeah, Thanos is terrible, but he's hardly the worst thing we've ever seen out in space. This one time we had to face an entire living planet, we just barely made it by the skin of our teeth with that one. And then Doctor Strange comes in and says, you think that's bad? I had to save the entire planet from a Lovecraftian entity who was going to suck us all into a realm of stagnant timelessness. Do you even know how many times I had to die in a time loop before he finally gave up? And then in comes Thor saying, I beg your pardon? The entire realm of Asgard was just destroyed by the Norse version of Satan, and we had to let that happen in order to stop the goddess of death herself. Suddenly, Thanos is starting to look more like a guy with a big chin who wants to bedazzle his glove. But of course that's not going to happen in Avengers Infinity War because that would defeat the purpose. But Omni Viewer, you modern Casanova, I hear you say. Thanos is a fictional creation made by the writers of funny books, whereas Karkarodon Megalodon is a living creature from history. Surely you cannot hold the two to the same standards. When depicting an animal, either living or extinct, does one not have an obligation to adhere to scientific accuracy? I hear what you're saying, and you might have had a point. But I'm still going to disagree. And I continue to disagree because you have no problem with scientifically inaccurate depictions of prehistoric creatures in fiction. Yes, you, the person watching this video, you are completely okay with it. And I can prove that with 3 words. Jurassic Park Velociraptor. Of all the dinosaurs to appear in the Jurassic Park series, the Velociraptor is the most inaccurate. Oh wait, there's also the Dilophosaurus and the Spinosaurus. Okay, they're the most inaccurate to have remained a consistent presence in the series. There's just so much about them which is inaccurate, and I'm not even talking about the lack of feathers. Having bodies 10 feet long and 6 feet tall? Wrong. Being hyper-intelligent? Wrong. Being native to Montana? Wrong. You can't claim these traits are mutations caused by the inclusion of frog DNA because all of it is established by Dr. Grant in his introductory scene long before he ever steps foot in the park. You also can't say these creatures are actually Utah raptors because these inaccuracies also apply to the original book, not just the movie. And the book was written well before Utah raptors were discovered. In fact, Utah raptors were discovered while the movie was being made. Also, the action figure line made a point of distinguishing Utah raptor as a separate creature anyway. The closest you can get to justifying this is that it was ultimately a mistake because Michael Crichton, according to some reports, confused Velociraptor with Deinonychus. While it may explain why the skeleton was found in Montana, it unfortunately doesn't account for the other inaccuracies, since Deinonychus was only 3.5 feet tall on average, and also probably not hyper-intelligent as far as we can tell. The fact is, this is not a true-to-life Velociraptor. It is an inaccurate depiction of a dinosaur. But by Jove, it's a great monster, isn't it? I dare say it deserves to be called iconic. And the reason why the Jurassic Park Velociraptor is such an effective monster is because they got the facts wrong. Even those of you who are sticklers for paleontological accuracy have to recognize that neither the book nor the movie would have been half as effective had we gone with the 3-foot-tall Mongolian bird brains of real life. I say, as it is with Velociraptor, so it is with Megalodon. Yes, the depiction in the books is scientifically inaccurate based on what we know, which admittedly isn't very much considering all we've got are a few fossil samples and they're incomplete anyway. But I really hope that's not a sticking point in regards to how you view the books. If it is, you're kinda missing the point. But luckily I'm here to explain things. And having done so, I shall call this video officially over. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.